and we'll get started. Let's see. So let me share my screen. Where's my BYU? Okay. So you probably already saw it, but I just want to let you know of a couple resources to help with the final, and then. So here, this is my additional study content that's in the weekly, announcements. There is this final exam review guide video, which is excruciatingly long, an hour and 48 minutes of in essence, me just going through the study checklist and discussing each portion of it. I've had some students say it was very helpful to them. Most people, though, see hour 48 minutes and go, yeah, I'll just take an F. Like, I'm not going to do 2 hours worth of video. Anyway, so I just wanted you to know that is there for you. And then additionally, the self-tests, if you're a person who found those helpful, like for the exams, a lot of people like to go through those before the final, because again, it's a rehash of a lot of the same types of questions that you'll see on the tests, because it's written by Wiley Plus, etc. So those are two tools that I've heard from past students have been helpful to them in prepping for the final. So, so did any of you get a chance to look at the little study guide yet? Yes, the same one so the most important feature at the beginning of that people need to know, and that people miss every year, is that all of those ratios from chapter 1 through 11 will not feature on the final. So you do not have to memorize ratio formulas, okay? For those of you who already saw it, you're like, yeah, I already knew that, but I'll tell you, if you didn't see that and you try to memorize all those and then there weren't any of them, I don't know about you guys, I have finite brain space. I mean, maybe I have infinite capacity someday, but right now it's pretty finite, and I'd like to know ahead of time that I didn't have to memorize all of those. So that's kind of, I guess, my set piece of what I have to say about the final. Questions you want to ask, or things off of that study guide you want to maybe go over or try to understand, or what do you think?
So just for clarification, there are no ratios on the exam?
There are no ratios from chapters 1 through 11 on the exam.
1 through 11. Thank you. I'm excited.
There may be a chapter 12 ratio on there, but I'm trying to remember if there's even what ratios are covered. I could probably look and see. Yeah, in essence, the way they designed this is so that it's like a regular test for chapter 12, but a small review test with about 5 questions per chapter for the rest of the chapters. That seems a little mean to me, but honestly, so I teach this at another college, and the things I really think you need to know, and also in my class here, but also that you really need to know for this final that will feature kind of heavily, is the idea of, can you make a journal entry? Can you make adjusting entries to the journal entries? That was that hard chapter where it was like, and then can you make a statement off of the ledgers? Sorry, so journal entries, adjusting entries, closing entries, and then making the statements. So that whole process, which we call the accounting cycle, if you think about the way the course was structured, it spent a chapter on each of those topics, and then it went back and it was like, okay, now we're going to learn more about assets, different types of assets, long-lived assets and depreciation. Now we're going to learn more about liabilities, including bonds and how bonds are treated. And so it's almost like the first 5 weeks of the course of this overview of the process of accounting, and then more specific about each of the parts. And so make sure you understand that process well. For one thing, it's going to help you on the final, but for two, if you forget how to do a journal entry and then you go to managerial accounting, it's just going to like, that class just starts like assuming you know how to do all that stuff. And so you have to make, you don't want it, you'll be behind if you feel really weak in that area. I'm going to pull up. The reason I stopped sharing my screen is because I'm actually going to pull up the final. And I think BYU Idaho would get super annoyed with me if I like accidentally, everybody's like, it's recording, shared actual final content, but I want to look at it. And I was looking at it earlier today, but I want to look at it while I'm thinking about this specific question about chapter 12. Yes, I know Proctorio is on my computer. So let's see. Sorry for the silence. I'm just wanting to read through this real quick. So yeah, so there are no ratios at all. Unless they include free cash flow in the ratio section of chapter 14. There is a question about free cash flow. So something to make sure you're really comfortable with as I'm looking at this, like the first 10 questions, 8 or 9 questions, are like them giving you information and saying, what is the cash provided by operating activities, or what is the cash provided by investing activities? So like they hit that over and over. Like that concept of being able to, maybe not 10 questions, but like 5, have information like they issue this much stock, they pay dividends of this much, they issue a long-term note payable. The financing section will report net cash inflows of blank and then fill it in. So that's worth if you can get that, that's going to be like a bunch of points. And if you're struggling with that concept, it's going to be like 5 or 6 points that you would lose on that. So that's one concept that gets hit, I guess, over and over and over. It's a little harder to do that for the remaining chapters because there's only like 5 questions for each one. And so they're not really repeating a lot of concepts. What other questions can I try to answer to walk the tightrope of like not telling you too much, like giving away answers or something, but being helpful? So I will tell you a pattern I've seen in the past, and that is that on average, people do they tend to score on the final about what they score on the exams. So if you've had like a really consistent on the exams, then you'll probably score in that ballpark on the final. Not to say there isn't things you can do to lift it above that average, but that just seems, I think probably because by this stage in the course, people's study habits are fairly developed. And so they're doing it the same way, they're going through it the same way. So what I would say is if you need like a really high score to get the grade you want, higher than what you've been averaging on the exams, then you may have to do something different. You may have to change up what you're doing. I know that may be discouraging to some and encouraging to others. I'm trying to be factual with what I've seen. It's funny how things that are factual can be discouraging to some and encouraging to others. But that's what I've seen in the past. Other questions about the final? And don't be afraid to ask them. The worst I could do is say, I don't think I can answer that, but I could, if you ask, I'll try to answer it.
Are there any concepts that you found that people have really struggled with in the past?
On the final itself, again, so what's challenging about it is like, there's like 5 questions from each chapter, right? So there's not a lot of repeated concepts. And so it's hard to say, you know, is there a pattern here that everybody's missing this one concept? And the answer is no. I mean, honestly, I've seen people get 100% on the final. But it's people who were getting 80 or 90s throughout the whole course too. So there's not a specific, question that I can cite and say over and over, this is getting people, and so please review this concept. Making me wonder now, though. I'll look back real quick. Other questions that I can dance around and not answer directly? Sorry, I didn't have a good answer for that. I guess I said no, that was direct. Just not helpful.
Going back to study on like old chapters and things, where would you suggest starting? Like not starting, but reviewing and really using to help
Right.
the final.
Well, again, so for my brain type, those self-tests that are in the additional study resources, that would help me a lot. And then I'll show you something else in a minute here. I was just going to look real quick and see if
Sorry, like I know you answered that basically already, but like some of the videos that we would watch for each of the chapters, those kind of things,
Mm-hmm.
would you suggest that helping too? I guess I'm struggling with where to start with so much info to review.
Right. So I don't know. I don't learn well from videos, and I just think they're really time consuming.
Yeah.
And so, but some people really do. Well, my problem with videos is like you have to watch this whole video to glean some nugget out of there, and then you're like, did I glean the correct nugget, or did I, like it's hard to use that. So I'm looking for something more targeted,
Mm-hmm.
and so, sorry, what I'm doing right now is while I'm trying to talk, I pulled up the test and was looking at students from last semester, and I was looking for a couple that maybe were like missed big time, because this one, 93% of people got it right, 85% of people. So I was like, but here, this one was only got right by 63%. So I was like, maybe there are a couple concepts I could review with you that got people, because it's the same test. So, and then I'll answer your question in just a second. I think I was still on the first question, and then I asked for another question, so I apologize.
That's fine. Another question just for future though is, will BYU at any point let us see our old tests, what we missed, so that we can learn from that? I understand like they're worried about it passing on to other people, but that's how I learned the best too.
Yeah, no, we've brought this up semester over semester, and the answer is steadfastly no. And their response is that the test is meant to be a measurement. It's not meant to be a study aid or part of the learning process. It's just an assessment of learning. And I get what they're saying, but I don't fully agree with it. Many things, at least in life, are simultaneously learning experiences and assessments. That seems to be how life goes. Like when you grab the hot burner, you were assessing your knowledge, but also learning. So the short answer is no. Again, we continue to bring it up as as a real issue for students to not be able to review their exams, and they continue to say, for the protection of the class, we're not doing that. I don't mean to be like those bad guys. I mean, we have a course council with both online and face-to-face instructors, and they have this discussion with the accounting department each year. Okay, so I'm in the modules.
Would it be okay if we went over first in, first out, last in, FIFO and LIFO?
Sure.
I personally struggled with that a lot.
So yes, I'll have to find a good example of it, or a good. So right here, let's see. So I'm sharing my screen right now if you don't see it. So I'm assuming that by this stage you are very familiar with this, because you've had to look up stuff in here over and over and over again. And again, you know, the question is like, well, how do I even start? And all I can say is, and I know some people disagree with me on this, but this bullet pointed study guide is my very best tool for the exams in this class. But sometimes it's a bit general. So it'll say like, know what items are generally used in preparing a statement of cash flows. And so you're like, well, you know, so what they want you to know from that is they want you to know that you need an income statement, that you'll need a comparative balance sheet with the last 2 years of balances, and a, you know, a list of any, well, I forget the term they use, but of any non-cash activities that may be pertinent. So honestly, what I do is I look at that checklist, and then I go and I look up the answer and write it down. Again, I'm not trying to talk down to you or say, because I'm sure this is what most of you do. But to me, to answer each of those questions in writing is like the very best skill practice I can have to prepare for the exam, especially because looking at this exam, you know, someone the other day was saying what's frustrating about the exams is you'll have one problem-based question that takes you 30 minutes to do, and you'll have another one that's like purely just knowledge-based, and then they're weighted the same. So it's like that's the other thing I would suggest, is that, you know, you go through that test and you know, there's the ones that you're like, this one's easy, I got this one, and take care of those and get those points so that you're not rushing near the end. You know, when you then, I guess, need and missing things that you would have otherwise been able to get. So that's my process, actually, is to go, whoops, it didn't like that, did it? To go through that checklist, do the Wiley Plus, you know, look it up in the book, then go to that additional self-study content and take those self-tests, and then I write down the things that I was missing and go back and restudy those concepts. And that's, you know, if I were taking this test, that's how I would prepare for it. Okay, first in, first out, and last in, first out. So who asked for that? Was it Anne-Marie?
Yes, that was
Okay.
me.
Okay, so I just want to try to understand more. When you say you struggle with it, you feel like you struggled with the concept behind it, or like you felt like you understood the concept, but then when you went and did problems, you weren't getting them right, or did you never feel settled with it at all? Does that make sense?
Yes, I felt like I knew how to do it, and then I found out that I didn't know how to do it, and I got very confused.
Okay. So let me see. Let's see. I think if we can find a practice one to sort of work through here that might be helpful to us. No, that's too minor. Okay. So let's see, Winnebago Industries, a leading manufacturer of motorhomes. Suppose they report ending inventory of, no, that's not going to help us. Sorry, I was trying to pull up a sample problem, and that's not a good one for us to really work through it. It's hard to just, I guess I'm struggling to like just leap into an explanation of it that may not be helpful, or it might be easier to walk through an example or something. Maybe this one will give us a better idea. And like I said, I recognize that you probably know how to do it. Let's see. And you feel okay with weighted cost, weighted average cost?
Actually, I think it was the weighted average cost that confused me the most. I think I understood the LIFO and FIFO somewhat, but it was the weighted cost that I could never get right.
Okay. So let's see if we can just walk through this, and maybe if you have a question as I'm doing it, like just jump in with the question, like don't be polite and wait, just ask, and we'll see if it helps. So here we have this practice problem. Shamrock Inc. They have a periodic periodic method. So let's see. So on October 1st, they have 63 units, and the units cost them $24 a piece. So their total cost is going to be the number of units they have times the cost. So we'll say date, and then we'll say units, cost. So on the 9th, they purchased more units. And those units cost them 26 a piece. So the total cost for those units. So now, in order to find the weighted average cost of our units, what we have to do is add up the total number of units we have and add up the total cost, and then we divide the total cost by the number of units, and that gives us a weighted average cost. Do you feel comfortable with that process so far?
Yes, I think I was doing something differently. Now that you mentioned how to do it, I think I was just adding and dividing it wrong. I don't know. But I feel more comfortable with that. Thank you.
Okay, are you saying you don't want me to go through the rest of it?
Yes, maybe I better just to be on the safe side.
Okay, let's see. So let's see. Let's see, calculate the weighted average cost. So then when we sell units, we're going to assume the units we're selling are at that price. So I sell 125 units, 104 units, sorry. So now, after that, now I only have 72 units left at $25.28 a piece. So when I make a sale, that doesn't change my average cost. It's only each time I make a purchase do I change my average cost. So now on October 17th, Well, I'm trying to think about how they're doing this one. We're going to look at how they worked it out. Because they may be, because it's periodic, just adding this one up for the whole period, which it looks like they are. So the way this problem is set up is they're just going to put their purchases. So they purchased 100 units at 27 apiece. And then on October 25th, they purchased 76 units at 29 apiece. Find the cost of those by taking the units times the cost. Then we add up our total cost and the total number of units. And then to find the average cost, we just say total cost divided by the total number of units. I think that's what they want from us. 26,574. All right. All right, so now they want us, would this be valuable at all to calculate the ending inventory, cost of goods sold, and gross profit under each of the following methods?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So what we have to do is, so the easiest way, for average costs, that's going to be kind of the easiest here, okay? Because we know the total cost of everything we purchased, and we have an average cost. So now we can say, well, we had these sales on October 9th. Whoops. Oh, no, wait, that was a purchase, sorry. October 11th, we sold 104, and October 22nd, we sold 63. On October 29th, we sold 105. Oops, those should be negative because we sold them. So now we can figure out how many units we still have at the end of the year. And so there's our remaining inventory, 80 units times our average cost. Does that make sense? So we take the number of units we purchased, those are the units available for sale, subtract out what we sold, and what's left over is the number of the units we have at the end of the period. So at the end of the month, they'll have 80 units. And so then we figured out the average cost of those units. So the value of our remaining inventory is just the 80 units left in inventory times the average cost. So for average cost, the ending inventory is 21,2591. The cost of goods sold, we'll have to figure out how many units we actually sold, which is 272. I just added up all those sales. So cost of goods sold would be 272 units times my average cost per unit. Oh, look, it wants us to round answers to 0 decimal places. So our cost of goods sold was 72.28. And then finally, it wants us to figure out our gross profit. And our gross profit is going to be our revenue minus our cost of goods sold. So our revenue is going to be these units we sold. So 104, 63, and 105 times their selling price. And this data up here tells us the selling price. So again, I'll say on the 11th, I sold 104 units for $38 a piece. On the 22nd, I sold 63 units for $43 a piece. On the 29th, I sold 105 units for $43. Okay. 105 units for $43 a piece. So that is my revenue, or the money I brought in from selling. 11,176. This was my cost of goods sold, 72.28. So my net profit, or my gross profit, then is my revenue minus my cost of goods sold. Did it want us to round that before or after? It's okay, we're rounding to the nearest dollar, so 39.48. So there's how you do it for the average cost. Probably I should have done this in a more organized manner. This is how I would do it if I was just working it out for myself. I hope that made sense. It's going to be a little bit different for first in, first out, because now we've got to figure out which units we're talking about, right? That's always the challenge with first in, first out, and last in, first out is when you say, what's the value of your remaining inventory? The first question is, well, which units are we talking about? So let me show you what I mean by that. So on October 1st, we have 63 units that we paid $24 for. And then on the 9th, we purchased 113 more units that we paid $26 for. So then when we make our sale on the 11th of October of 104 units, the question is, well, which units did we sell? Right? Did we sell the $24 units or the $26 units? So under first in, first out, our assumption would be that we sold the first or oldest units, so that we sold all 63 of the $24 units, and that we sold an additional, how many did we sell? 104. So what's 104 minus 63? 41 units that cost us 26. So that's what we sold on that date. And so our cost of goods sold then is just going to be the number of units we sold times their cost. Whoops. And the same thing here. So that'll be our cost of goods sold for that transaction. So our balance after that sale is that we now have, let's see, 113 minus 41. $72 units left in inventory. And they're all these $26 units. Then on October 17th, we purchase another 100 units that cost us $27 a piece. So now we have 72 units at 26 and 100 units at 27. And then on the 22nd, we have another sale. Again, the question is, which units did we sell? Well, under first in, first out, our assumption is we sold the oldest units. So we sold 63 of those units that cost us $26 a piece. So our cost of goods sold on that is 63 times 26. And then our balance after that sale is going to be, what, 9? We'll still have 9 of the $26 units, plus we'll have 100 of the $27 units. Then on the 25th, we purchase more units. So now, as of the 25th, we have 9 $26 units, 100 $27 units, and 76 $29 units. And then we have a sale on the 29th of 105 units. We'll assume that we sell all 9 of the remaining $26 units. And we sold 105, so that would be 100 and so all 100, no, 96 of the $27 units. Is that right? Yep. So our cost of goods sold is the units we sold times their cost. And our balance at the end of the month is that we have 4 $27 units and 76 $29 units. So that's what we have left over. All right, so now that helps us be ready to answer at least some of these problems. Under first in, first out, our ending inventory is going to be 4 units at 27 and 76 units at 29. Whoops. So our ending inventory is going to be 2312. Our cost of goods sold is going to be the total of all of these where we calculated our cost of goods sold each time we did it. And then our gross profit, again, what we'll have to do is go up and say, okay, let's see, because we sold these for different prices too, right? So I'm gonna have to actually calculate that out separately. So actually, we had our revenue before. I should have kept that number. Well, no, because we're assuming different units sold. All right. So I guess what we could do is put revenue here. So our units that cost us, let's see. Actually, no, yeah, so we sold, on the October 11th sale, we sold the units for 38 apiece. And so we sold 63 units times 38. And we sold 41 units times 60 times 38. So that's our revenue. And we'll have to go down and do that for each of them. So I feel like I don't know, this is starting to get long, I guess. My question is this valuable to you at all, just watching this process, or is it getting tedious at this point?
It's been a good reminder, for me at least.
Me too.
Okay. Do you want me to finish and do the last in, first out, or do you want to move on to something else, I guess is what I'm asking.
I'm okay with moving on to something else unless someone else wants to stick with this.
I have a quick question, if I could, about this.
Okay.
So I know I read this in the book, that they explained why a company would use FIFO and LIFO, because I'm watching this thinking I would just use average cost all the time and not even think twice about it because it's going to save me a lot of time. So what's the purpose? Why do they use it?
Yeah, so if you remember so there's this question that you'll see on the test that's like, the methodology they use, true or false, has to match, what they actually do. And the answer is false. It doesn't have to match. So the reason they use it is in periods of of rising cost, a first in, first out methodology will lead to, let's see, first in, first out. So that will lead to a lower cost of goods sold and a higher net income. And in periods of falling costs, the opposite is true. So sometimes companies have goals to say, like, maximize the reported net income, even though it doesn't change the amount of cash you're getting in the end, right? It's just a matter of, because these are all estimates, which units am I selling? I will tell you that many businesses use average costs, and actually more and more businesses use like a specific identification method where they just say, we know exactly which product we're selling. And that's because barcode scanning and computers have made that way easier. So the short answer is sometimes some businesses will choose their methodology based on their goals of either trying to maximize net income or minimize net income reported. Others will choose to use the method that they feel most closely matches up to how their inventory actually moves, even though that's not required by the IRS. But you'll see businesses that sell perishable things, you know, they think in terms of first in, first out. We're always trying to move the oldest product first. And so their accounting follows suit. You know, I like the average. I feel like the average method is the most conservative method. It sort of buys the middle ground. And honestly, with computers, it's super easy. It does it for you. You can have computers just do that for you.
Thanks.
So what do you think? Last in, first out, or no?
I think we got it.
Okay. Is there anything you want to look at in the current chapter on cash flow? Like, no, cash flow is super easy, man. Why would we need help on that? I find cash flow confusing, at least I did when I was a student. Now I mostly just tell QuickBooks, calculate a statement of cash flows for me, and it does that. Okay, so none of the homework problems then were really killing you, I guess. What else? Anything else? Are we good for tonight? I'll take that as we're good for tonight, unless somebody's trying to find their unmute button real quick. But then I think, you know, I think we'll leave it at that. Look, I understand and recognize that the way they've set this course up, the final is high stakes, and that makes people nervous. What I would say is nervousness isn't your friend. You know what I mean? Like, all you can do is do what you can do. And so, you know, at this point, don't be so stressed out that you're in tears by this thing. You know, all you can do is, like I would do is look at that study guide, go, you know, look up the responses to those and take the practice tests. And I think that if you do that, you've put in your fair share. Now, if you're one of those people that says, no, I love Orion and I've been using it, then by all means, go back and review the concepts you have a hard time with using Orion or whatever tool has been working for you. But, you know, don't get discouraged in it. I have students say, you know, I'm frustrated because I've prayed and I've asked God to help me, and I just don't feel like He's helping. Like, I'm still struggling with this, and my response to that is that God does help us attain to learning. He doesn't always help us get good grades. I mean, I don't know in the cosmic eternities if He cares if I get an A or a B or a C in a class. He certainly cares about the growth I'm making. I know that. I can feel that every time I sit in an interview with youth. I can feel how much He loves them, and I can feel that sense of proper and appropriate paternal, I won't use the term pride, but of love and caring for them And even as they're struggling and even as they're sometimes making bad choices, I feel that. So I just, I hope you remember it, especially if you're feeling frustrated, that God's love for you is independent of the frustration. That frustration doesn't mean he's abandoned you. In fact, oftentimes when we're struggling and growing is the times when we feel abandoned, because he's backing off a bit and allowing us to work through things. So anyway, I don't mean to preach at you either. I didn't hear anybody give me an amen. So we don't do that too much in our church, do we? I'm waiting for that someday in a sacrament meeting for someone just to jump up and give me an amen. But
I'm in Texas and we've had that happen.
have you? Okay. So yeah, that's true. When I was in a little branch in Texas for a while, and it was like everybody in that ward was like converted Catholics. They had been Catholics before they were LDS, and so that ward had more of a Catholic sensibility than it had a say like a Southern Baptist sensibility or something. It was an interesting place to serve in a branch presidency and have to occasionally be like, well, that's not doctrinal, but those are good things to talk about because there were so many converts. It was an interesting place. All right, everybody, thank you for your time. Oh,
Brother
yes.
Fox, sorry. Can I ask one more question?
Sorry, we're done with the questions.
Okay.
No, go ahead. I'm kidding.
I'm gonna redo my evaluation. This is a really lame one. These practice tests you keep talking about, where are they found at? I've never found them all semester long. So I keep using Orion.
Okay, and so whoops, let's see. So the additional 201, the additional study content, that document, you can find. Oh my gosh,
are they there?
Do you know where to find this document?
I think I stumbled upon. Yeah, I'll find it. Yeah, well,
okay,
yes.
It's in the weekly announcements. So like if you're in the course and you click on announcements, and by the weekly announcements I mean like each week I put out like here's what to expect this week. Down at the bottom there's additional study content, and that will take you to that document. And then for each chapter there's a self-test and an additional self-test.
So this is where you learn that I just scan through those announcements each week. Sorry.
No, I know, and I'm like, if I put pictures or something in them, will people look at them more? It's not. You're not alone, okay? And as an instructor, you're like, where do I put things so that they're easy? Maybe I should put the link to this somewhere in the body of the course somewhere. Although I've also found that within the course, like people scan through the modules and don't read it either. They mostly just are like, which one has a due date, and they go do it. So yeah, so don't feel like don't feel bad, and B, I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear where it was. Anyway, that's where you find it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm the master of giving a 2-minute answer to where a 10-second answer would have sufficed.
It's okay. It's good. Thank you.
All right. You know what? We forgot an opening prayer. But is anybody willing to offer a closing prayer?
I can do it.
All right. Thanks.
Our Father in heaven, we come before thee this evening, grateful for the opportunity to meet together and to review for the class. Grateful for Brother Fox and the work that he puts in to instruct us and help us to learn and grow. As we study for the final, ask for thy help and guidance for each student so that we may be able to remember those things we've learned throughout the course and be able to apply them in the test as well as in life. Ask for blessing to be on all those that we know that are suffering with COVID or with other ailments, and to comfort those that are in need of that comfort. And say this in Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. All right. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.